sing some West Coast lyrics, I guess I should say. Like E40 comes to mind, Too Short comes to mind. Because I found myself, or we as a hip hop study hall crew have found ourselves in Northern California, Oakland, San Francisco area. Right?
Yep.
And all my friends know me, right? How much I love this hip hop. They be like, dude, what are you doing in Google? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's the culture.
We gonna get to that. And I don't think that people understand how much of the culture is.
For sure.
But first off, let me do you the honors of welcoming you. My man Max is here. Max, do I use the middle initial, Max?
I mean, if you want to go full government, it's Max E. Joseph.
My man, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Before we even get too far into this, right? We are at Google right now.
Yes.
Right? I want to get into your background, of course, because I think when I talk to people about hip hop study hall, right, they'll be like, "Oh, this ain't a record label. Why would you want to go to Google to talk to somebody?" Let's first talk about your title here.
Yeah.
And what your job encompasses here.
So the thing to know about Google and tech in general is we all have these really long titles that don't actually say what we do. So my title is Senior Marketing Program Manager, focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion within marketing operations. What does that mean?
That was gonna be my next question, because I read that on LinkedIn, right? I gotta do my background, my due diligence.
Right.
And I was like, Ekin, how do you get that out without having to pull your phone out? And then I almost had to have like a mini rehearsal. But then I got to you and you was like, you got it.
Yeah, so think about a car. Every car goes through a factory, right? Well, marketing is no different. There is a process, like a factory, that every single thing that a marketing team makes has to do pretty consistently before it gets out the door. We call that the marketing process. And that's gonna be true if you work in tech, if you work at CPG, if you work in an ad agency, or if you work at a music company.
Right.
The marketing process is almost essentially the same. Marketing operations, their job is to try to make that process as cost efficient, as time efficient, and as productive as possible. So that's what a marketing operations person does.
Right.
For me, I'm doing the same thing. I'm solving the same business challenges, but I have diversity glasses on. So what I'm looking for is, what are the chinks in the process that is making the work more diverse, more inclusive, helping us to give more money to diverse suppliers, and actually holding agencies accountable to their representation on their staff. So same business challenges, but with a diversity lens on.
I like that.
Yeah.
I do have to go here before we get too much deeper into this too.
Yeah.
Because diversity and inclusion seem to be a big word in the last 2 years, right? We look at all the things that were going on while we were in the pandemic, and I remember I did quite a few episodes, and shouts out to my girl Tony Howard, who does, like, from the HR side, diversity and inclusion work, right?
Yep.
She talked about a lot of this stuff. And has it always been kind of like that at Google? And again, not to put it in a bad light or anything like that, but, or was it something that when you got here, you and some of the people you work with really were like, yo, we might be missing this step?
So that's a great question. I would say, as a company, they've always invested in this space. The way I like to think about the diversity journey of a company is like a pyramid. Foundationally, you have to care. You have to have a mission or a vision for what you want your company to look like and how you want it to represent people. I think a lot of companies start with the next step though, which is diversity and representation. They start out with if we care about DE&I, well, we need to make sure we're hiring the right people. It's like, nah, you gotta start with, what does it mean to us? What does it mean for our culture, right? So that's where the company started. And a lot of the initial investment was like, how do we ensure that we have a staff that can support that vision? So we have employee resource groups like the Black Googlers Network and OLA and AGN that are all about fostering culture within the company. And they organically have a process here where it's like, well, if you care about a thing, you could create a group about it. Like, I'm a member of the Disability Alliance. I'm a member of Families at Google, for all people who are raising kids at this company and trying to figure out How do you raise kids living in the Bay, right?
Right.
So that idea of fostering culture is where the company started. Then it pivoted to, okay, what's our representation, right? How do we make sure that we're hiring and retaining talent so that the numbers of our staff look like the world, wherever you at, right? Which is not easy to do. Now you got representation. It's like, all right, let's talk about equity. Let's talk about how everyone can feel like they are getting their quote unquote fair shake, which for you to feel like you're getting fair shake is subjective.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Right?
because to your point, right? A lot of these companies, and let me make sure I'm framing this question correctly.
Okay.
You made a point a second ago. You said, you know, we want to be inclusive, right? But your point was, first off, you need to understand though, how does that make us feel? I think a lot of companies skip that step.
Yes.
Do you think that maybe you guys are doing a little better because of what Google is and who Google is? Because you got to think, okay, could, say, a radio company, could they do it the same way though? Because if what if their formats are not so much that they may not have a hip hop station in there or a Spanish station, but you've got a Spanish young lady that's selling advertisements for radio, because selling advertisements is across the board.
Right.
But because there's no culture in there like that, because they never had a Spanish radio station, so it really wasn't a need for that. But she just does sales. She loves sales and she's great at it.
Yeah.
Is it harder for a company like that though, as opposed to making it easy for you guys because of what Google is and what it you know?
I understand.
You look at Google, period, it stands for something, right? We searching for stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I would say it's no different than somebody doing that same research and those same questions on themselves, right? So a lot of this, like, well, what does your company stand for? It comes down to leadership at that company. What do you stand for? Like, don't come to me and say you are not these things when you haven't picked up how to be an anti-racist, for example, right? You got to start with yourself. And then you go, okay, what does this mean for my team? What does this mean for my organization? What does this mean for my, and it's those circles. You got to do it like that. You got to look at your sphere.
Max, I got to stop you because you're gonna need like 2 hours, but I don't have that much time on your calendar today. So, no, you and I love talking to dudes like you. Ben and I talk about this all the time, right? Like, because it's these are broader conversations.
Yes.
You know, and I don't want to. We got you today. I got to back you, but please,
It's all good.
Just promise me this, that we can have these deeper conversations.
Anytime. Anytime.
Now, and again, that you are very much in a good space with your thought process. But I want to make sure that these youngsters get to really learn about you and how you got here, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your start. And this is my research on you, right? Young dude, internship, first gig, moving around the space a little bit. You're getting in, and you're in the music space at first.
Yep.
What I understand.
That's right.
You're in the music space. Obviously, where you want it to be if it's an internship or first job, right?
Right.
Let's talk about how you got to that, and then how did the pivot to say at Google happen,
So,
or even the steps that happened there. Let's get your story from
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. So I started in the music space. That was my passion. I was a writer. I was making music. I was making beats. I was the person who was the first person in the studio and the last person out. Like, that was my thing. I was in it. I was like, there was nothing that gave me more energy than being in the studio from like midnight till 5 a.m.
So did you in the beginning want to be a producer first, a producer or a creative of the music first?
My vision for myself was to be the next Russell Simmons. Like, that was my vision. That was my goal. And then I had this internship, and I had this amazing experience being in New York, being in the culture, being indoctrinated, right?
So you're seeing it firsthand.
I'm seeing it firsthand. I'm seeing the good and the bad though, because the person who was leading my internship was like, you want to keep it real? I'm going to give you everything. So he showed me all the colors. And at the end of that experience, you know, similar to like any professional, I'm like, all right, so this is my exit interview. You know, what advice would you give me? What feedback would you give me? He said, leave the music industry and don't come back.
But wait a minute, they can't, dude, you like me, we want to be Russell, you can't tell us that.
And I said, why? I had the same reaction. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, I am not gonna let this industry limit your greatness. And you know, As a black man hearing that from another black man, you're like, you just fall out.
Right.
Right? And so he said to me at that time, he's like, you've been doing these little graphic design projects on the side for the label, doing mixtape covers and flyers and all that sort of stuff. Have you ever thought about working in the ad agency industry? I'm like, no, I never thought about it. And so come back to campus, I applied to an ad agency internship, got the offer, changed my trajectory completely. Worked in ad agencies for about 5 years. And the ad agency industry is very fickle. Like, you work on one project launches, someone at another agency goes, hey, that was dope what you just did, come do it over here. And so I'm jumping company to company every year. And after a while, I was like, I wanna do more.
Right.
This isn't enough. So I went to grad school, got my MBA. And while I was doing the MBA thing, in my mind, I'm like, I know I like solving problems. So let's figure out what's the best job to solve problems. Right. And I applied to some consulting things, got some offers there, but then I was like, you know what? Almost on some like Swaggy P, just threw it up there and just turned around like, let's see what happens.
Right.
I sent in a resume to Google. It's like, let's see what happens. They hit me back. And they were like, we got 2 offers for you.
Wow.
You wanna work in marketing or you wanna work in sales? And I'm like, I've never done sales. Let's try that out. So I did that for 4 years and went from an individual contributor to a people manager, and then was like, you know what? Marketing is who I am. I gotta be close to the culture. I gotta be closer to the making of things,
right,
rather than consulting the people who make the things. So I applied to the role I'm in now, and I've been in this role for about 4 or 5 years.
How important, because, and I'm sure you've done this, right? You talk to a lot of cats that are younger than us, right? Or that are thinking about getting into this game.
Yeah.
How important was the mentor, though, and those mentor conversations? I mean, you got the schooling. You obviously going to school. You're getting that part. You're getting the book part, right? But to have that person that can talk to you about real life experience, because you and I both know this, right? It's one thing to read about what Google may do or Google what Google may do.
Yep.
But to actually have somebody that's in here and have this conversation with them, and it be real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about your feelings right now. I want you to understand what's real. You understand what I'm saying? How important was that mentor and those conversations that you were able to have?
See, mentorship is everything. Is everything. Like, a lot of people come into different circles, different rooms, and they think, I need to have the person that opens the door for me. I need to have that person who's gonna advocate for me, the sponsor who's gonna talk about me when I'm not present. And in certain parts of your life, that is true. The mentor, though, is the person who teaches you, nah, you gotta speak for yourself. And they're the one who coaches you up to be able to talk about yourself so that you busting down the door instead of somebody else opening up for you. That is powerful. Every single important career decision I have made in my life has always been after a conversation with a mentor, period. Mentorship is everything to me.
That's big. And I think that's a step that a lot of younger people, like I talk to Ben all the time. He's on this team, and I tell Ben, I'll be like, yo, you're really dope at this. One of the things you need is, like you just said, somebody that can help you get in the room, because you've got the talent, but you have to get in the room. But then also, like, that back and forth.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes he don't think about it, that he's a mentor to me because he understands the life group, right? So when I'm talking, yeah, I've lived here longer than him, but I don't know everything about that life group. Like, we're having real conversations.
Yeah, and I think, it's funny, with some of the younger kids that I mentor, it's the same conversation. I don't think that these mentees realize that mentorship is a reciprocal relationship. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, as a mentor, I get just as much back.
Boom.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's like, nah, like, you may feel like, oh, I'm talking to this person, I'm asking them a lot, like, what are they? It's like, nah, sometimes just you showing up and creating the space for them to pivot and not talk about the stuff that they left at the door is value.
Right.
You giving them the space to allow them to bounce ideas off of you is value. Like, there's so much value that the mentee also gives to the relationship of the mentor, if you're open to it and you build that type of relationship.
Right. this is a big question nowadays, right? When you're talking to this group that you and I are discussing right now, and I think this is the perfect place to ask it too, because when I look at you guys' site, right, I look at Google and what's going on, right? There's Google certifications. There's all these things that you can. So one of the big questions that's coming out now is, how important though is it for me to get in debt going to college? You know, when I'm trying to work in these spaces now, like it's like, say if I want to work at Google, right? I could probably put a bunch on my resume because I've gone on the company's learning spaces themselves and gotten certified here.
Yep.
And I can prove it and show it to you, right? But then, or I can go over here and I'm $48,000 in debt a year trying to get a degree.
Yep.
Now, from someone who's done it on a few different levels, MBA, and I'm sure you got some certifications as well. How important is the college part here nowadays when you say come and go on work?
So, immigrant family.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you college and education is everything, but with a big old asterisk.
Okay.
And the asterisk is, but where you trying to go? Right? Because if you say to me, my goal is to be an entrepreneur, I might tell you, you need to go learn by doing. You need to go to the school of hard knocks. You need to get out there and experience things on your own and build some companies, build some ventures, experience failure. That may be more valuable than you getting a piece of paper. Now, if you're saying to me, I'm trying to be the next Ursula Burns, and if you don't know who Ursula Burns is, you need to go and Google that.
Ursula Burns.
That's a completely different conversation. That is, I need a certain pedigree on my degrees. I need to get a certain level of work experience. So it all kind of depends on what you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. For me, my long-term vision, when I sort of map out who was in the space doing what I wanted to be doing, you know, like the Steve Stouts of the world or the Nas's of the world, but doing it in the corporate setting, you know, bringing culture, storytelling, and marketing together in unique ways. I was like, all right, these are the boxes I need to check. So that's why it made sense for me.
But are you able to? And I'm asking this as a kid
Yeah.
This is where I'm coming from with this question. I'm a kid online, right? All I do is I watch YouTube every day, and I done seen these videos, and I'm watching the culture, right? You in corporate America, dude, how are you able to still be a part of the culture, and you in here? Sneaker game aside.
Right.
Don't get a shot of them kicks, okay? Because we're not gonna start him up in here. That's another. not gonna do that. But
another episode.
Right, because if you know him like I do already, then you understand he's very much understands the culture. But if I'm a kid on YouTube and I'm watching videos, drill music and this, that, and the other, bro, I don't need to be in corporate. How you in corporate and still part of the culture?
So a couple of things. One, my response is, who do you think built the platform for those videos to be on?
I'm gonna let you preach. My job is to ask the question,
right?
Sit back and let you get
right. So me, I'm gonna say Youngblood. Like, yeah, you watching it on YouTube. How do you think that those things get there? There is an entire business and corporate strategy around the development of those things. Something like one of our newer products, YouTube Shorts. Well, someone came up with that idea internally. It had to be built. It had to be tested. Then there needed to be an entire revenue strategy, a business strategy, a growth strategy around those things. Every time I say the word strategy, that is someone who had to come up with that idea, right? If you're talking about one of our initiatives on YouTube, the Black Voices Fund, that is an idea of a Black man or woman in our marketing organization that was like, there is a community whose voices are not being amplified enough. What can we do? That they went to a Black VP, and the Black VP was like, yeah, let's do this. So it is people in the corporate space that are empowering these new voices and these creators. Now, there is definitive value that those creators are also providing as well, right? We're creating the space, they're creating the content. But those two things have to live part and parcel with one another. And the other thing I would tell you is, you have creators that are like 100, 200, maybe 300 views that are producing amazing work. But you and I ain't seen them.
Right.
Because it's the creators with 1 million views that got an entire team around them that look like you and me. who are thinking about every time I said that word strategy, that is a person's job who it is to think about, well, how do I take this video, turn the lens a different way? How do I put it out at this time? How do I make sure you're working with the right person? How do I make sure and? So it's not just another 100 view video, it's the 1 million view, it's the 10 million view video. All of those things take people who are creative problem solvers at the end of the day. Because I mean, look, at the end of the day, let's be real. Hip hop, the culture, is just a endemic cycle of creative problem solving.
I'm still letting you talk because sometimes I think people think, because I'm from the Bronx, to me, I tell people I am hip hop, like I am. But I very much understand that although I haven't known you my whole life, you are hip hop. That's why I like to hear you say these things.
Because look, think about it. At the end of the day, how did hip hop start? Right?
We had an issue, and it was something we were like, we wanted to throw a certain type of party that meant something to us.
Yes, it is creative problem solving at the end of the day. It is, I have a problem, I want to have the sound of a large band because I'm looking at Soul Train and I'm looking at those artists and I'm like, I can't afford those artists, but I want their music. How do I do that? 2 turntables and a great sound system. Then you turn into, okay, how do we have these conversations between different community groups in the Bronx, in Queens, in Brooklyn in a way that allows us to compete in a nonviolent way? Breakdancing, boom. We are a culture of creative problem solvers. I am just taking that same lens and applying it to a new set of problems.
I think something that's missed too, and I don't want it to ever be missed in what we're creating here with this hip hop study hall platform, is that the culture is much more than just rapping.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
The culture is an ecosystem of creativity and problem solving, as you said, all working together, right? I think and I don't know who to blame for this, right? I know people that want to make money, like, so they don't really care about what you and I care about when it comes to the culture of creatives and how we do this business, right? But I think one of the things that needs to be stressed is what you just said just now. The culture is much bigger than just saying, oh, it's the dude on the mic. It's you, it's my man House over here, it's Ben, it's all these people who are creatively solving these problems to make this thing keep going. And it constantly keeps evolving because it's a constant learning process.
Because I think what ends up happening is people fall into this trap of you can only dream what you see. So people see the person, they see the MC on the mic. They see the athlete with the jump shot. So they're like, I dream to be that. Not realizing, like I said, there's a whole team, a whole community around that person that is enabling their greatness. And you can be great in one of those jobs. You can achieve your own moniker of greatness within that and not be the person with the jump shot and not be the person on the mic. Because at the end of the day, we as a community, many of us have sort of put those people on a pedestal. But again, hip hop is not about rapping. It's not about, and one street ball mixtape. It is the community around that. And there are people who have decided, like, and one I think is another great example. You can't tell me and one isn't hip hop, right?
I mean, I can.
But someone had to have that idea.
Right.
Someone had to go, oh, well, these things are already happening. What if I just shoot it? And what if I sell it? That is an entrepreneur realizing an opportunity. And then if you think about scaling that, if you think about the fact that we had N1 clothes and shoes and all that sort of stuff, that is an entrepreneur.
It was a traveling tour.
Right. It is an entrepreneur taking an idea that was bred and breeded and raised in the culture and then bringing it to the masses. What else is more than hip hop than that? Period.
I don't got all day to talk to you. But in my mind, I'm just writing down more things.
For sure.
Because
you know where to find me.
Man, let me tell you something right now, man. I just want the audience to understand that for you to take the time and to drop gems like these, I just want to tell you how much that I appreciate it, me and the team that's sitting here right now. Like, because I don't think that, you know, when we first talked about this idea, like one of the things that, you know, is actively creating opportunities through the culture. And when we first like came up with the statement, it just said hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
But you've even emphasized more, even to, and shouts out to House's point, because he made this point in the email, I just read it again the other day, that no, it should be the culture. And then we all looked at it and was like, the culture. And you may be my first interview in this journey that I want to be on that has made that even more clear. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just, you know, by your journey and then just the thoughts you're expressing. Before I let you get out of it, let's talk about the ever evolving tech space that's coming into that. I wouldn't even say coming into hip hop, right? Because you look at, I was looking at a thing one day and it said the guy who runs Spotify is worth like $3 billion or something like that, right? But then also too, in this very same meme, it was like, he never makes a song. He never has produced a song. Let's talk about the tech space coming into this entertainment, and with regard to the hip hop culture. You yourself obviously saw it early through mentor conversations and just understanding where you want it to be, right?
Yep.
A kid coming into this now, right? That they love NBA YoungBoy. You know, they into, you know, they got all these kids that they watching on YouTube, right? Yeah. How should they be thinking though if they're thinking about getting into this space? And not guaranteed, but just thinking if there's like, I would love to be in this space, but I don't write raps, but they love YouTube. And they're watching it every single day. They don't even realize they're a part of the marketing plan because they sharing it with their friends and sending it to their friend and this and that and the other.
I mean, there's so many angles we could go with this. I'll say this. You yourself, the artist that you are listening to, what technology has enabled, the way that we used to think about it is your boy who was selling, you know, quarter waters and t-shirts on the street was an entrepreneur.
Right.
Technology has now turned that person into a brand. Because technology has enabled you to go, I can do content distribution, content syndication, content creation, all through my phone. Everything through my phone. How powerful is that? If you think about it, the computing power in this phone now is more powerful than the first computers that were ever created.
And you'd have to help me carry that.
It would take up this whole room. One end to the other.
Right.
Right? I remember being the kid, because my aunt, when I was a kid, she was going to college. I was the first kid in my neighborhood who had access to a computer, right? Now you fast forward, this phone is more powerful than that computer, right? So if you're like, oh, I'm looking at different aspects of this, understand that you may not necessarily want to work in tech, but you're going to work in tech. Because tech is now pervasive across everything that we do, not only on the business side, but then also in our daily lives. And so how best you can understand leveraging technology to enable, or in some cases, put rocket fuel on whatever you're trying to do, that's what you need to be studying.
Look, man, can I tell you how much I appreciate you again? And all I'm asking is, let's leave the door open for more conversation in the future. Like, we'll take this trip, but I would like to be able to have more conversations with you.
Yes.
Because I think that the way you're talking, you're so important to this space. And we might even need to take you in the studio to see if you still got some of that beat making capability.
I mean,
I'm just saying, we go in there with a little equipment, we see, you know.
I might have a little bit of, you know, Victor Oladipo left in me too, but we can test that out.
You know what else we'll do? I'm gonna put this on the thing. We're gonna go sneaker shopping one day. Like, I think we do that too.
I think we do that.
A few things we can do.
I think we do that.
You know, but again, and like I said, I don't know if words do it, because like I said, I feel your passion the way that I am about the next generation of creators. Because I feel like for the longest time, you know, you saw Russell. Mm-hmm. You didn't just see Run. even though you were very happy to hear Run,
Yeah.
love Run, DMCJ, everything they stood for. I always saw this guy, like Puffy says, I saw these guys that they were sitting in the chair and seemed like they were running everything.
Right.
I want to get our kids to look at those spaces as well, because
Yeah.
we create these things, and I just don't want to hear any more stories about what we didn't get to keep.
Right.
You know, before I let you get out of here, if I could get one thought, I'm a ninth grader, man, and I'm just around this space. I was on a group tour, and I met you, and I'm highly infatuated because you know the first thing they see when they see us, right? Oh, he knows a little something. He got the Miramax on. He knows a little something.
Can I say?
But if you could give them like a word of advice, man, what would it be?
So that same thing I said. You can dream what you see. Don't just settle for what's on the camera, right? Because to your point, I easily could have seen Run and been like, I want to be Run.
Right.
But I'm like, who's the dude in the background? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like when I used to do music, I was like really sort of picking things apart. And one of my professors once said to me, he's like, if you like NBA, whatever his name is, I ain't even know on. Yeah, you like him. Who does he listen to? Go study that. Who do they listen to? Go study that. Do a couple of rounds of that, and then come back to that first person. Right. So for me, it was like, all right, I like Russell. Who influenced him? Who influenced those individuals? Because that not only opens your aperture to more people that you should be having on your radar for aspiration, but then two, you start to see how the visions of success, leadership, ethics, morality, equity, and value that then translated down the line to that person that you then start to emulate and start to go after. So don't just settle for what's in front of the camera. Always look for the people behind the camera.
I don't think I can finish it up any better than that, man. The dude's name is Max Joseph, man, or E. So I put the E in. I like how that sounds. I like how that moves too.
Yeah.
Max E. Joseph. I like how that moves.
Exactly.
I appreciate you, man. The spot is Google, of course.
Yeah.
Give him the swag version of your title.
So the swag version of my title is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Enabler.
Boom. I just want him to be able to Google that. That's all I'm saying, man.
No doubt.
It's Hip Hop Study Hall, man. I'm DJ Ekin. I just get to be here with really cool people, man. Still trying my best, actively creating opportunities through the culture, man. Look, man, I gotta go, man. I wouldn't say it's overload. I'd just say it was like a really dope day, man. I knew I came to the West Coast for something, man, and it wasn't just to eat this good food out here either. I knew I came to the West Coast for something.
Hey, that's what we're here for.
Man, let me tell you something, man. Google this dude, you better. Google him.
My man.